All right, let's do this today. So today's topic is the running back dead zone and how to navigate it. It's a really important area because like these are the guys that uh, are going to be your RB2s or they're going to be your RB3s coming off your bench at certain points in the season. And while they may not have the overall upside, they hoping that these guys break out may be futile. The reality of it is they're going to uh, be relatively safe if you understand what you're getting at. Like I like to say, know what you're getting, control your expectations, and know if what you're getting can be found someplace else in the draft. Like this year, one of my favorite guys is David Montgomery. Uh, Even though he may have a legitimate road to top 10, top 5 running back, depending on injury, he's a guy in a good offense that's going to get some receiving work, more than likely going to get the goal line work, going to get a lot of the grinder work, probably a low end RB2 in and of himself that's capped from a ceiling standpoint. Also, probably going to be relatively safe floor. You've heard a lot of other people talk about him. I don't want to get too much into him, but like from a value standpoint of what you're going to get from David Montgomery and this ESPN, and I tend to like ESPN. I think they're relatively correct in their evaluation of where people are at. So David Montgomery going in the 8th round or 7th, 8th, 9th round of a draft is probably where he should be going. I don't have a big problem with that. I wouldn't steam him up too much higher because, again, unless we get a Jamar Gibbs injury, we're just not going to be able to really get him out of his shell. So he's got like the same range of outcomes almost as an Isaiah Pacheco, because Isaiah Pacheco is going to be on a good offense. He's kind of got this role. He's going to be limited on his ceiling. Somebody else may come and take some work away from him. So even if we kind of like him, there just isn't a lot of movement. And we can talk about J.K. Dobbins here, where it's like there's a lot of athleticism to like about him, but who knows what his role is going to be within that offense. So if I take a guy like J.K. Dobbins, I'm going to go like, okay, maybe I've stacked my draft in such a manner that I need to get something out of my RB2 spot. Or, here's a guy that maybe has a little bit of upside as an RB3 coming off my bench. That's a good pull. But the main guys to look at when we talk about like running back dead zone are going to be right about like running back 16, which is Dameon Pierce after Ramondre Stevenson. You'd even maybe throw Ramondre Stevenson into this area depending on how your draft shakes up, because the Zeke signing may scare a lot of people off him. It shouldn't. It actually should raise his value. As we talked about this before in the past with Ramondre Stevenson. Now we have a very clear understanding of Ramondre's role when they signed Zeke. If you didn't think that we had a good understanding of Ramondre's role when they signed Zeke, the fact that the Patriots shipped Pierre Strong to Cleveland gives you a pretty good understanding that they know what they're going to do with Ramondre, and that's why they brought in Zeke to spell him. The Pierre Strong trade locks Ramondre in my opinion. Now he's running back 9. That's where Ramondre should be viewed. But if he falls into your running back dead zone, like he's an easy smash. On ESPN, you're getting to the point where like Ramondre should probably be an early 3rd round draft pick. That's where he should be going. So if he falls into this running back dead zone, which is roughly here going to be 4th, 5th round, he shouldn't be there. So we're going to talk about Dameon Pierce. Probably not a good offense in Houston. Does appear that he's going to get 3 down work and get spelled by Devin Singletary. Again, your expectations should be, mid running back 2 where he's going. There's definitely some upside, but he's on a bad offense. So there's definitely your expectations should be in check. Again, if you're looking across the board to who you would be taking him against, like I'm not going to take a DeAndre Johnson over Dameon Pierce because running backs are unicorns, wide receivers grow on trees. So I'm going to be smashing all those guys. And from a quarterback standpoint, like there isn't even a guy in that range that I have to apples comparison him to. It's just pure running back at that point. Like, I'm going to smash that. Now, would I go up around early and get Dameon Pierce? It depends on who's on the board in that area. Like, I really like Calvin Ridley. I really like Keenan Allen. So no, I'm probably not going to be going up around early to get a Dameon Pierce to plant my flag, as I like to put it, because I would rather go up and get Keenan Allen and Calvin Ridley in the third if I need to, but that would mean that, yeah, I would think about moving a guy like Dameon Pierce up around at that point. But there is some value in that. And Breece Hall is the same thing. Breece Hall is going to be a league winner. That's what it looks like he's moving towards. So how to navigate the dead zone with a guy like Breece Hall is I want to take him. My expectations are I can't even use him at the beginning of the season. That means he has to take up a roster spot. Am I going to waste a premium round pick to get Breece Hall? Well, that depends on if I'm constructing a roster to win my season or to maybe make playoffs. And there is a conversation to be had about winning every week versus trying to win your championship at your draft. Next guy up in the running back dead zone, we have Rachaad White. I'll tell you, like, my opinion on him has changed very heavily based off of their usage of Sean Tucker and the what looks like a career-ending injury to Ryan, or I think it's Ryan Jensen, their center. I'm probably going to back off this because now I have to expect that, like, his floor is probably slightly lower. His ceiling is also probably slightly lower. I do like him in this range. But again, like, who would I be giving up to get him in there? And if I want a guy in the running back dead zone, I have to go up and get him. So I'm not just going to be taking a running back in this range because that's where these guys are locked up. If someone falls to me, but again, a guy like Rachaad White, yes, you're going to get a low end RB2. That's what your expectations should be. He would be a guy, if that's all that's available, I would take him. Because then we're going to get to some of the other fun ones, like obviously Kamara. He's going to sit on your bench. Some stuff down the line. Miles Sanders has a legitimate road to being running back one. So when we navigate the running back dead zone, we have to take into account, like, yes, there's a range of outcomes where Miles Sanders is this year's Josh Jacobs. And just like Dameon Pierce being this year's Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders has a route as a 3-down back. You can say what you want to say about Miles Sanders. Anybody that says Miles Sanders doesn't have a receiving ability didn't watch any video of how he was used as a rookie when he had 50 catches. They were using him as the receiving back in Philadelphia. If that's how they want to use him in Carolina, my questions are more about how good the offense is going to be, how much his efficiency on the ground is hurt, because I could definitely see him going back and being used in that receiving back role. It just becomes an issue of, can the offense be good enough to get him to the Josh Jacobs level? And the Raiders offense wasn't particularly good. Is Miles Sanders better than Josh Jacobs? He's probably got a little bit more top end speed. He's probably not the back that Jacobs is. Jacobs just showed like an absurd amount of not efficiency, just talent last year. His ability to use his vision and to understand blocking, which is not something I necessarily have seen out of Miles Sanders at this point. But Miles Sanders does have an overall career efficiency that I do like out of him, and he is on my list of guys that I do want to get if he falls a little bit. The question is, do I go up and get him? And again, if I'm doing apples to apple or apples to oranges comparison of who I would be giving up in this range, like, this is the range that I probably should be looking at these running backs. I'm not going to go up early to go touch these guys because I know there's a lot of risks involved. And that's why the wide receivers should be driven up into this mid-range, because the top-end running backs, and like I said, there's only 9 of them this year, with Ramondre now going up to my running back 9. The running back should all go off the board before like almost any of the wide receivers, because they're uniform. There's a lot less of them that are going to be able to put up points. So as we continue on, like, James Conner probably shouldn't be draftable because they're going to be in a bad offense. Anybody that says, well, volume is king, they're right, but the queen is efficiency. And if you're on a bad offense, you're just not going to get enough to move you out of the potential running back 21 overall range. So maybe you get James Conner to be running back 15. Well, I would rather have Dameon Pierce's upside. So moving on after that, we're going to talk about Kenneth Walker. I'm not as low on Kenneth Walker as some people are. I do think that he's going to be boom bust this year. The Seahawks are going to have a good offense. They're probably going to be run heavy. Charbonnet is going to definitely vulture some stuff from him. But just in general, like I like where he's at. And part of the reason why I like what he's at is I've talked about this before about like owning backfields. I can get Charbonnet basically for free, and I have a pathway for a league winner by just getting Walker and Charbonnet on my team and just seeing how the season shakes out. I am going to win weeks off of these guys. I am going to win championships off of these guys, especially if certain things, for lack of a better way to put it, break a certain way. Alexander Madison, he's okay. Like, I think you can get away with him as a low-end RB2. There is a little bit of upside because there is some volatility about whether or not he's going to be a true bell cow. How much his role in the receiving game is going to be. It's probably not going to be a bad offense, which means there's going to be rushing touchdowns to be had. There's a lot to like about Alexander Madison. Part of the problem with him as we roll all the way down here to Ty Chandler. Ty Chandler's probably going to cut into him a little bit. Ty Chandler is a sub 4.4 guy. It's just something to be aware of. They signed Alexander Madison to backup running back money. So from a standpoint of Miles Sanders and our guy that we talked about first, David Montgomery, starting running back money on this year's market, low end running back, starting running back money was about $6 million. They only gave Alexander Madison, I think, $2.5 million. So that shows you the indication of what they actually think about him. So if someone can cut into his touches, they are going to cut into his touches. They're not paying him to be a spell killer. They're paying him to spell somebody. And taking that into account, he's going running back 23. He's probably a very strong weekly play with limited upside and probably a pretty high ceiling. You're probably looking about like I would venture to guess like a 6-point floor. Very touchdown dependent at that point. James Cook is a guy that's steaming up everybody's board, including mine. Like I said, there's a very, very good comparison to Travis Etienne's last year's stats. The problem with Travis Etienne is he started slow, and the good thing about James Cook is he probably does have a little bit more of a weekly floor because of how he's going to be in design. He's going to have design passing plays, and we really love design passing plays from a running back. He's a guy, and I actually am going to change my strategy to in particular target James Cook at this value. 61 overall, running back 24. Like, he's a guy that, like, if in this running back dead zone area, like even to jump up to a 5th round pick to go take a James Cook, low end running back 2, replacement level RB3 coming off my bench to a guy that could have top 24 overall value. And you're getting him right on the precipice of not being able to disappoint at his price. Javonte Williams, he's a guy that for Denver, coming off a major injury, which is a guy we're going to talk a little bit more about Breece Hall before I'm done. Probably should already be off your board. Denver's probably not a good offense. He's going to split time with Samaje Perine. The main issue with Javonte, as much as I sort of liked him coming out of college, is the fact that he's just never going to have top end efficiency. He's going to leave yards on the field because he's just not fast. So he can be efficient. He's just not fast. The plays that you need to get those upside weeks, even if he wasn't splitting time, will never be there with him. Cam Akers, very interesting guy for the Rams because there's a possibility that you could sit there and say, like, he's got a pathway to being this year's Josh Jacobs. The further that you can get him in your draft, the better. And if you're getting him to be an RB3, and that's where he's being drafted at this point, like, what's it going to hurt you? Like, the only problem with Cam Akers, his price on ESPN right now is he's going like 63, which means you're going to be having to take him in a premium round, as opposed to David Montgomery, where you're probably not going to have to take Montgomery, or you might be able to get Montgomery outside of a premium round. By premium round, I mean a round where the capital relates directly to the amount of spaces that you have in your lineup. So if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that is going to go directly into your lineup. So if you're taking a guy like Cam Akers in 63 overall, that likely means that you're projecting him in your flex. That's not a bad place for him, because if your flex busts, you can probably get over it. If your flex hits, you have a better chance of making playoffs. Same thing with David Montgomery. And then we hit a few other guys. Like I already talked about J.K. Dobbins a little bit. Isaiah Pacheco's limited to talk about him. Dalvin Cook, this is another guy. Why I waited to talk about Breece Hall. Breece Hall is a league winner. They brought in these two guys. If one of them goes down because of injuries, you know what you're getting with the other guy. Breece Hall, before the Dalvin Cook signing, was going at like $33. Breece Hall was like a third round draft pick. He dropped like almost 2 rounds. The knee is a worrisome thing. That's why at $33 he wasn't worth it. Well, now his price is in half, and I get Dalvin Cook. Probably both of them maybe low end RB2s to start the season. Eventually, based off workload, Breece Hall might be a league winner down the line. And in the meantime, I have a handcuff. This is a great deal for $20 again, because like there just isn't a running back in this range where that would have the overall ability that these two guys have, the range of upsides that I would want to see. There just isn't a guy that cliff from Ramondre to Dameon Pierce, that middle ground RB2 just doesn't exist, and I can get that with Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. And a lot of people may stay away from Dalvin Cook. He's just right outside of that range of a premium draft pick. Maybe I have to go get a premium draft pick for him, but he may have early season upside for Cook. Like, I like pairing these two guys together. Sometimes you got to do something like that. And then the last guy that we're going to talk about is Khalil Herbert for the Bears. I was higher on him. Now I'm getting a little off of him because I do think it's just going to be this big, big. Well, I won't say that. Running back by committee, really big blank. Running back by committee, that 300 monster that we really hate. I'm just going to say, like, hey, I should probably stay away from Khalil Herbert as much as I like it. And again, you're losing rushing or receiving upside because of just how Justin Fields plays. Who knows how good the offense is going to be in the first place. He's a guy that I really liked, and now I don't, and I'm probably going to keep him outside of my range, and then we can get further and further into that running back dead zone. And there just aren't a lot of guys later that we can kind of toss our hat at and go like, hey, maybe there's some upside, unless we're trying to get lucky with some injuries. So I'm probably going to stay away from some of the stuff like that. But that middle running back dead zone, it's a really good thing. You don't want to be going and trying to find value in other positions, because these guys are appropriately valued where they're at. And I just want to be able to go like, how do I view the pathway for this guy to be able to help me? Because they're for most of them it is there. Like I said, like James Conner doesn't have that. Alexander Madison doesn't have that. So I can probably move those guys off my board. The rest of the guys, like, do they have that? Yes. Okay, I can move them up. I'm going to really like them, but I'm not expecting them to do more than what I'm asking them to do, which is be an RB2. And if I move over to the other side of the field in the same area, like DeAndre Hopkins doesn't potentially have the upside that Dameon Pierce has. Why would I go get him? He's not going to jump up and be able to compete with A.J. Brown as the wide receiver 10. This is likely not going to happen. But can I see a range of outcomes where Dameon Pierce can jump up and go compete with, Josh Jacobs with the Raiders? Yes, I obviously I can see that. Like, they're very similar players, so I can see that happening. So that running back dead zone has a lot of value, especially where they're at. Now, how much would I go jump up into the next tier to get them? Well, this is the interesting part as I ramble a little too long. That your Jonathan Taylor, who should be off everybody's board at this point, but Mixon, Etney, Harris, Gibbs, and Jones, those guys are capped. They're 100% capped. Let someone else go take those guys in your third or fourth round. Wait for the rest of the running back dead zone. The real running back dead zone is like, how do I walk this guy to a range of outcomes that's higher than he does based off the evidence that I have, and they're limited for whatever reasons. So anyway, that's just my general thoughts on how to attack the running back dead zone, who I like, their general upside or their lack therefore of, and maybe I'll come up with something to talk about tomorrow.